Welcome, everybody, to Come Back to Love radio show. This is Robyn Vogel, and we are here on Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. I'm so glad you're tuning in this week. I'm your host, Robyn Vogel. I'm a love and intimacy coach, a certified internal family systems therapist, and the creator of Ready for Love in 90 Days. This show is a sacred space where we explore the real, raw, and beautiful journey of coming home to love, starting within ourselves and extending to the relationships we long to have, to heal, to deepen, or ignite. Each week, I'll share powerful tools, heart-opening stories, and transformational insights to help you release old patterns that are keeping love just out of reach and rewrite the story you truly want to live. Whether you're healing from heartbreak, feeling stuck in familiar dynamics, or simply craving deeper connection, you're in the right place. I also invite you to join me twice a month. I have a free class. It's a 2-hour class called Break Your Patterns in Love. It's a live, empowering experience designed to help you uncover what's really been holding you back in love, whether you're in relationship or not in relationship, and guide you toward all of your relationships that you deeply desire. You can sign up anytime at freelove.today. Very easy to remember, freelove.today. You can also catch Come Back to Love Radio every Thursday at 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And it's so cool because you can listen on your phone, through an app. You can listen in your car. You can simply ask Alexa to play Dream Vision 7 Radio. I'm so glad you're here. Today I have a very special guest, Debjani. We just met a little while ago. We started doing some work together. We decided to do this radio show together. And I'm so excited because I'm going to learn so many things, and that always excites me. And I just staying very curious about what our session will be today, what our show will be today. I know we have
Yeah,
intersections in our lives that we have discovered only a little bit, and I know that today we're going to dive into them. So,
yeah,
welcome, Debjani, and I would love you to just share just an initial intro, like who you are. Our listeners want to know.
yeah. Thank you, Robin. I have really enjoyed getting to know you in the past few weeks, and really enjoy looking into your business too. So, a little bit about me. I grew up in India. I was born and raised there. There's family and traditions and rituals are important. Life was vibrant, still is, full of connection. And I moved to the US around in 2009. I was 17 at the time. I'm a very big experimentalist, a risk taker. So it was a new place, new everything. So I was very excited. I moved here to pursue a degree in electrical and computer engineering from Carnegie Mellon. And then later, built a career in technology and leadership at a Fortune 100 company. And then, I wanted to create something of my own. So from 2016 to 2021, I grew a business by 10x. So I came in, it was 200K year-over-year revenue. And then by 2021, when I exited the business, it was $2 million. And
Wow.
I began to realize that like I wanted like freedom and really like a chance to explore. Like I said, I'm a very big experimentalist. So I love like taking risks. And so when in 2021, the pandemic hit, I decided to take a different direction and started Wolf Group, which is my company, and it became like a big part of my journey. So it's just a way for me to help others, business owners and leaders, find the kind of structure and ease and time. So we manage like the operations back end for major businesses. It helps me, take care of the people that I care about. I've become really good friends with everybody who is, a client, because I strategically think about their lives, their time, their families, their business, which is really like their baby. And we have now grown into not only simplifying operations and implementing technology, but also giving people the chance and space to reconnect with what, matters to them. Whether that's like, they want to go back to like, what their interest and passion lies. Maybe it's the law, it's selling houses, whatever it is, or their families, their children. It just, yeah, it just
Yeah.
gives them permission to, go back to those fours instead of the operational back end. That's a little bit about me,
Wow.
but
I'm so glad we're
that's,
doing this and that we decided to because it's so evident to me how your work is all about come back to love. And just to highlight really what you just said briefly, it's like you're supporting people in 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 their businesses
yeah,
and and then freeing them up to, I'm going to say, be more in their hearts because I know as a small business owner myself, right? If I'm doing, then
yeah,
I I'm less capable of being in my heart as often as I want.
yeah,
And
definitely
so,
true.
yeah, you're taking on the doing so that people can be, like you said, more with their family, more with their passion. I'll add more in their hearts. And that is so powerful for me, certainly as a business owner. But just when you said that, I got chills because this feels so, yeah, it's really potent and it's really special. And I think that not everybody, it's not everybody's passion to like support people in that way. So
Yeah.
it's really, really beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just like helping them get more clarity and structure. It's very important for me to also give freedom. I mean, freedom at the end of the day, like a lot of the reasons why even like small to mid-sized business owners start their business is for freedom, but they don't
Yes.
get that, and as I've had a kid about, a couple of years ago, I've kind of tried to figure out how do I do this in a way without, that I can still keep my responsibility to my child as well as do all the things I want to do without burning out. And one of the ways to like really make an impact was to come at it from a strategic point of view, where you can like really look at all the strings of a company as well as do the heavy lifting.
Mm,
So they get my clients and my friends now get to go back to their families, their passions, themselves. And it
yeah.
helps with not only life and business, but also relationships. So
Yes.
that's coming back to come back to love. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, very much so. There are so many couples that I've worked with over the last 20 years that honestly, this is so sad to say, but I'm going to say it. Like it's true that the couples that come to see me, of course, they're under stress, they're under duress, they're under stress. And sometimes it's literally that each of them is working so hard, like so hard, and they have children without support. And
Yeah.
sometimes they separate and get divorced when I've been sitting with them for session after session, sometimes year after year, and I feel, oh my gosh, if they just had the support that they require to manage this kind of ecosystem of intense, desire for, a successful business or making a lot of money or personal success, personal victory, whatever it is, that the two of them are so passionate about and trying to raise two children or three children or one child all at the same time. And if only they had actually
Yeah.
layers of resource and support, whether
Yeah.
they have money or don't have money, like maybe
Yeah.
the marriage would stay together.
Yeah.
Mm,
I think it's particularly hard here,
hard.
because when I grew up in India, we're surrounded by family and tradition, and there's a strong sense of community, which you kind of have to find here, but also because the cost of labor is so cheap, the help there is much easier to get. And so, there's one of the things that you said, couples have to work so much to be able to keep themselves together, their families together, and one of that could be a lack of resources. And I certainly lead a very different way of life here than I did in India. I had so much help there. And I've also realized that the love language here is very different from the love language there. So, like my parents and my families and my grandparents, their love language was by doing. So, like giving someone the freshest piece of mango, like it's something simple like that, like or like the most amount of rice. That would be, or like making a tiffin box, like which is basically like your lunch box. That's like the love language. Whereas here, it's
Mm.
I've struggled within myself to figure out like what can I do to like match somebody else's love language, because what I've programmed myself to do isn't necessarily what they think is loving. So this is like definitely some work, because the cultures are different and the dynamics are different, and I
Yeah.
have to like find connection on my own terms. It's different, yeah.
Wow, that's so fascinating. I want to go. There's two pieces I want to go to here. The first is different culture. And describing the couples that I just described, like it breaks my heart, honestly, because, I know what it's like. I've been through divorce. I had young kids. It's absolutely devastating. Even though it was like the right choice for me, it was one of the most devastating decisions I ever had to make and ever made and ever chose to
Hmm.
make. So when I'm working with these couples and I feel intuitively, and even more than intuitively, but beyond that, like logistically, if they just had the resources or lived in a different culture and could receive support,
Yeah.
that the marriage would last, the relationship would thrive, the children would, thrive and not have to experience a separation. So I'd love to hear, and I'm sure our listeners would too, like just how is that? Like what does it look like when you grow up? When you grew up, maybe you could share a little bit about what that looked like. And actually, I think some of it is transferable, like some of it, even though it's a different culture here.
Yeah. So the thing is that it's a mindset, so you have to be resourceful to kind of find what you need to be able to survive. So when I had my child 2 years ago, I had no idea what I was doing. I was a brand new mother, and of course, like I never really grew up around children. I mean, I had a sister who was 7 years younger than me, but as I said, the entire family and the village was involved in taking care of her. So here I am, like found myself completely by myself. And my husband was incredible. I learned everything I know about parenthood from him. He's incredibly patient, and I'm so grateful to have him.
Wow.
And I realized that like the difference is that our relationships back home were often supported not only by extended family networks like elders. There could also be like your grandparents, your uncles, aunts. So literally like everybody is just right there. But at the same time, but here that's not the case, right? Like my family was back in India, I'm here, and so when like growing up there, I the mindset was always that something there's someone to help you with something, and that's not the mindset here. So how do you find that kind of support that you need to be able to survive? Like you're not only losing your sleep when you have a child, you also have to like you're pulled in different directions. Like you lose the connection to your partner, where you used to share everything, and it's an intentional choice that you have to make to spend time to like have that connection. And it's really the choice has to be made by both sides. You keep that connection, not only like if one person is saying that, oh, I need this, but you really should listen and like understand what are they actually saying. Are they saying that they just want to have a conversation, or are they like missing something? So I have had to work through this with my husband as well. And like I said, like he's very supportive in various ways, but every relationship has its challenges. So you get pulled in different directions when you have kids, and as your obligations increase with your job, with your company, with your child. And so how do you find those resources when that when you need? Is it like through a babysitter? Maybe you ask your grandparents to come. Maybe you like time block. Just find. And I also like, and it's complex, like it's expensive, it's complex, so definitely not easy. There's nothing easy about it. It's
Yeah,
just a way of life that you have to figure out, because you have to prioritize these relationships.
yeah.
Yeah, you can't
Great.
just like exist. Yeah.
Right, I agree so much. And, I'm going to add a layer of complexity to it. And I know we won't spend so much time in this episode, but bookmark for future episode. Um, one of the biggest pieces that shows up when I speak to these couples about, resource and help is this feeling, and it comes from the culture growing up here, and sometimes not in the US, but let's say growing up in Europe somewhere, um, that they don't feel like there's a couple things. One, they don't feel like they deserve the help. So it's not even the mindset is just not there, like you said,
Yeah.
because there's not a mindset of I am someone who can gracefully and graciously receive help. Like I deserve
Yep.
to receive support. For
Yeah.
some people, they really don't feel that way. And when I bring in the concept, it's completely brand new. The other thing that ties in with that, and I think this is also helpful for our listeners, is so often people don't trust, and I think this might also be like a Western culture thing. People don't trust other people's yeses and nos.
Yep.
And so that stops people from asking what
Yep.
they want and what they need. There's a beautiful saying that I learned in the Human Awareness Institute, which is an organization I did a lot of workshops with 20 years ago and for the last, and then like 10 years straight. It goes like this. Ask for your 100%, be willing to hear no, and negotiate a win-win. And for me, at that time too, it was like, it was a brand new concept. Ask for my 100%. Like, what? Who wants to hear
Yeah.
100% of what I want?
Yep.
But I started practicing it, and I realized that it's not part of our culture. It's not part of our upbringing, and it takes courage,
Oh, it definitely takes
shifting
courage.
mindset.
Asking for help takes so much courage because there's like this part of you that thinks that like will any first of all, will anyone help me? And secondly, can I afford it? And third, whatever help the person is giving me, is that good enough? Maybe I'm the best at doing
Mhm.
blah 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 blah. And
Yes,
it may be true, you may be the best at doing it, but
right,
is it really like, do you really need to do it all?
right,
You know?
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm
And
remembering when I moved out of my house when I was getting divorced in 2005, and this image, I will never, ever not remember this image. I asked for help. I asked for help in my community. It was the Human Awareness Institute community. We had a listserv. I put out my 100%, and I didn't have a lot of money, and I was, getting divorced and, counting pennies and all of that at that time. And people literally came to my house that I was living in with my then husband and carried paper bags of my things, walked them down
wow,
the street because I moved only about 5 blocks away. They were carrying paper bags like shopping bags that you get at Whole Foods or Trader Joe's, carrying my things from one house to the other house.
that's amazing.
Oh my
Wow.
God.
I think that's also a reflection of who you are, Robyn. You just exude this kind of personality that is so loving and warm, and the kind of thing that you would do for someone if they were going through something, right? So
Absolutely.
it's just what you attract. Like you attract love, you attract, friendship, you attract family, you attract the kind of connection that is a part that is bigger than ourselves.
Mhm.
So it's natural for someone like you to like, also experience some of that back. So that's really great.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for
No
reflecting.
worries.
Yeah. So,
And
okay.
go one of the things that I came to, learn from you is like is how you do like pujas.
Mm,
And I really wanted to talk about this because this is top of mind for me today because I literally, I'm picking up my sister from the airport in like 3 hours. And one of the things that we're going to do together is chant. And so, and it's just the way that you feel when you do it more than any kind of religious connotation. There's a calmness that comes to you. And growing up in India, it was just the rhythm of life. Every morning, I'd hear the soft clang of the bells, the smell of like sandalwood. Then there's jasmine. It's just like all the smells. and then the flowers, and then of course the worship, which we will do today, but none of the other things about bells and sandalwood. But yeah. And I heard something the other day that where you do puja circles. So can you tell me a little bit about that? Because I'm very curious to hear about it.
Yes, yes, I love that. And of course, you grew up in the culture, so I am not at all an expert
Ah,
in the least. I'll share my experience. And that is that when I was in relationship back in 2016 to 18, I was in relationship with this deeply spiritual man who basically lived on the donations, dakshina. He lived on the donations of what people gave him in as he provided service in the form of kirtan, chanting, calling.
oh, wow.
So he he was quite a bit older than me at the time. We were together for 2 years, and I feel like the purpose of that relationship actually was to introduce me to the Hindu culture in the way that a Caucasian guy from, Brooklyn, New York could do. But he had spent a lot of time connected to this ashram out in California, small ashram in California that's connected to a very big ashram and sort of eco village in Varanasi in India. And so he really wanted to go, and I was very curious, and so I went with him. And I just fell in love. I fell in love with the energy of this 3 square mile place with beautiful buildings and the most gorgeous flowers I've ever seen, and the incredible vegetables growing in the garden. And I just fell in love. Not so much with him, but with the ashram,
Yeah.
the environment. And so I ended up taking initiation when I was there to this
Wow.
particular, um, yeah, this particular lineage that originated with Shiva, but very divine feminine oriented, which is also what I loved about it. So we have three of the goddesses of the archetypes that we are connected with, that we chant to. And I learned about the true definition of the word puja, because just like you, although for me only when I visit, sadly, um,
Hmm.
I wake up to the sound of the chime. I smell the sandalwood and the jasmine, and we're called to the temple very sleepily because it's very early. Sit down
Yes.
with my, in the Jewish religion, I would call it a tallis, just a wrap over my shoulders, and
Uh-huh.
enter the temple. And I have the chills talking about it. I love it so much. And then the beautiful altar with the images of the guru. Um, that from a few generations ago, and just yeah, and then we would we have a set of rituals that includes pranayama, breathing, chanting, etc. And then that's how we spent each morning and also every night before bed.
That sounds lovely.
So lovely. So
Yeah.
I really understood the word puja as a sacred ritual, which I had understood before in the westernized version of the word puja. So we can say, before we take a commercial break, we'll say that in Tantra, which is one of those misunderstood words, I would say, and also because it's been highly sexualized, the work of Tantra has been highly sexualized
Yes.
in the US and in other European countries as well. And so that part of my path has been um, being exposed to and embracing a practice of sacred sexuality, which is something I definitely did not grow up with, didn't know anything about. For me, the practice of sex was just like what I saw on TV, or read in some books. And so when I had an awakening experience in my early 40s, I realized there was so much more to intimate connection, whether it was, sex and sexuality or just connection and intimacy and eye gazing and emotional connection, that I fell in love with
Yeah.
that way of being in connection with other people. And through that, I started studying Tantra, and I studied with different people. I studied, with my guru in California. So I studied the more spiritual practices, meditation, chanting, like I said. And I also studied with people who brought Tantra to the US. So the more sacred sexuality practices. And the way that I bring it in the form of what I call an intimate puja circle and many other things that I do. But I bring it together so that it's not just one or the other. I want people to embrace and practice the meditation practices so that they can connect with themselves in their own hearts and learn to be present and learn to also let triggers and things that get activated in our human connection, learn how to manage those.
Yeah,
And then also bring that, so because that's the first relationship with the divine. So that practice brings you into connection with the divine as the first relationship. Then there's the relationship between you, and that's the piece of managing and, understanding our all of our parts and our psychology. And then the third relationship, if you choose to bring that yourself into relationship with other people. And so for me, it's always been that flow. Although, of course, it didn't start out that way when
of course.
it took until the awakening experience in my early 40s to understand that was for me a way of being with living, because
Yeah,
Tantra is all about what we do while we're here living on the planet.
yeah, yeah. For me, it's just a way that you express love, love for people. We in our family, it's uncommon in India to like express it in using words. We hardly ever use words of affirmation. Like I distinctly remember the first time that I told like anybody I love you, like my mom or someone, because we didn't always say I love you in the family. We showed it in our work, the service that we did, and our rituals, and of course in our prayers or our thoughts where we prayed for each other's like health, safety, dreams to come true, simple things.
Mm,
And that's the love language. We never said, "Hey, I love you," or "I miss you." These things we didn't really say. We just like did. And I've realized that it's important to also say it. And no matter how messy it felt, we could pause, just sit together and connect with something that is greater than everything around us. And that's what like puja did for me. I'm not very much there are certain things that happened to me like earlier in my life, especially when I was in school, that kind of didn't it didn't reinforce my belief in the divine. So I took, but my family is heavily, into it. So there's this break that you have to make, but at the same time, still kind of honor your roots, so to speak. And so the way that I do it within myself is just to like just be together. And it's a quiet way of saying that, I want good things for you, that everything good happen to you, like I care about you, and use that energy in the universe to like make sure that your dreams come true versus having a place where you would pray to something that's bigger.
mhm.
Yeah.
Wow,
It's
beautiful.
just, yeah,
I
yeah.
want to talk about the love languages. We're going to take a quick commercial break and we'll be
Yes.
right back.
How are you doing?
Welcome back to Come Back to Love Radio. We are here today with Debjani. And gosh, this is really this is such a powerful conversation. I hope that our listeners are as feeling that way, as powerful as I feel it is. I've had the chills so many different moments of you talking. I love what you shared about puja, first of all. But I want to end, it relates this because you mentioned it a couple of times, the love languages. That is so fascinating to me. And I actually think so important. Again, in my couples work, that's such a big part of, how people engage and what people do for each other and don't do for each other and where people are upset about that and not upset. But I would love to hear again a few things about the way love has been expressed in your culture.
Oh yeah,
And when you
definitely.
lived in India, when you lived in India. Yeah.
Um, I so it's as I said before, like it wasn't really ever said like I love you or I'm proud of you. Um, it was it I feel like it was just a part of the ritual where we didn't want to really draw attention to a win. So the way that we would, say that something was good is through an action. So acts of services, unspoken gestures, um, is how I really learned how to feel loved. And so when I see this in my own relationship as well, so the way that I express like love, I have obviously like said I love you and all. Like now I'm a much different person than I used to be before. In addition to like doing the service, I also express myself a little bit more. Physical affection like hugs and casual touch never was a natural thing. We didn't really do that in India. Like I can't remember um, really hugging a lot. It's just not a part of the culture. But here I do that, and but initially it felt a little bit awkward. So you kind of like mesh into the culture. At first, it was quite foreign and uncomfortable, and then I realized that these expressions are not superficial. It's just a different way of expressing how you feel about someone. Um, and I've realized that, between these two cultures, love doesn't have to be a single voice. Sometimes it's just like a meal that's being cooked. Sometimes I need a break from my toddler daughter, who, by the way, I love so much. Her name is Anuradha. But sometimes you just need like a little bit of a break from the chaos. But how do I show love? You cook a meal for her, which she deeply enjoys. Or you just sit with her and observe her, not necessarily like engaging into like every single thing. Maybe like her father is playing with her and I'm just like sitting and observing. And that feels to me like love because we're at least all together. Um, and so these are like the, quiet and steady ways of expressing. Acts of service are a huge way of doing it in my culture, where my mom used to wake up at like 5:30 almost every day that I went to school, I'm not entirely sure that was even ever necessary, but to make like fresh food, even on the hottest of the days. Like she's sweating through her clothes, but she's going to make me fresh food to take to school as lunch. And then, of course, like, my dad handled all the responsibilities, like, quietly, like school fees or fixing things, and never really like, even today, when I say thank you, it feels awkward. They're like, are you going to say thank you to me? It feels like there's a distance in the relationship if you thank them.
Wow.
So
Really?
yeah, so like we don't really like thank someone who we are super close to because it's expected that we're just always gonna do this for each other. So like my mom, for example, was here for a couple months and she made these like amazing meals for the first time in my like for the last 2 years. I've always had food on time at the table. And I was like, oh my God, thank you, Mom. And she was like, are you always gonna say this? Is this like she was almost annoyed that I'm thanking her because it's just something that she does because she loves me.
Right.
And my dad like helped me organize my desk, and I thanked her, and I mean I thanked him, and he also like just made me like be quiet. So it's there's no words or ceremony. It's just like care that's woven into our lives.
Yeah, that makes
Um,
sense. That the thank you would be almost like taking away from how the love is just normally flowing and expected, but in a good way.
yes,
Of course, I'm
yes,
going to care and love for you in this way, and these are the ways and the things I'm going to do. And
yeah,
I can feel energetically there's something about when you said thank you that there was some separation in the connection,
yeah,
something that wasn't as honoring as they're used to. Something like that.
yeah,
Not that I have the words either, but I certainly can feel it. And of course,
yeah.
here where, we teach each other to say thank you and to be appreciative, and it's a whole different, that's a whole different piece. But
It's
I also,
always like,
go
yeah,
ahead.
go. It's always for me. It's a little confusing because my husband grew up here, so it's always for me embracing both. The quiet and the steady love that I grew up with, and then of course the like open vocal one with physical affection, hugs, the words that you express like I love you or thank you. So there's always a balance, and you always have to like see where. Um, it's not it's causing more of a a closeness versus like pulling away from one another. So it's a balance for me.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can imagine. I can imagine that. But I love it also for our listeners that are in relationship because I think in the US, and this has come into a lot of my couples therapy sessions over the years, there's such a high value around verbal communication. And
Yeah.
it's true in a lot of classes I teach. I'm all about the nonverbal. Like when people are speaking, I'm like, shh. Because it's totally different to have an energetic connection or to just be with
Yes.
the energy or to, like you said, say prayers inside yourself and then bestow love upon somebody just inside yourself, which we know
Yeah.
has the impact, whether we say it in words or not, we're doing it inside ourselves. And that because there is a belief that I have that we're not separate from each other. And so when you're doing your prayers
Yep.
and you're carrying the person in your heart and you're bestowing love upon them, of course they're
Yeah.
feeling it. And you don't have to
Yep.
say, "Hey, I did this for you. I need a thank you for that." Like which is
Yeah.
can be very much a part of American culture
Yeah.
sometimes. Um, so I think it just gives permission. This conversation gives permission because what can happen is there can be pressure on the person who's not as like verbally oriented,
Yeah.
and then there's
Yeah.
this pressure for the verbal communication, which I teach many, many people and I value myself, but there's pressure on the person who's just not oriented that way. And then they look like the bad person. They're not doing it right. They're not good enough. They need to communicate better. Why can't they say? And it's like, oh
Yeah.
my goodness, like maybe they're sitting at night every night for hours and hours, like praying
Yeah.
for you. Thank you very much.
And sometimes your mind goes faster than your words, right? So like
Yeah.
sometimes people are not so precise in the way they communicate. And like I've often said, oh yeah, that thingamajig, but maybe, like I actually meant to say something totally different. And the essence of what you say may not necessarily, it's like sending a text versus meeting someone and understanding their body language.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. 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 Very
Yeah.
true. Yeah, beautiful.
There is it's tying back to like why I'm doing this with my company. I've just seen so many people like drowning, brilliant people, so smart in what they do, and they barely had time for these like little relationships to connect with themselves, to like time for their families. And it kind of reminded me of my parents, constantly giving, constantly holding the weight. They never really have time to breathe, And so when I started Wolf Group, Wolf is my husband's name, and as I said, he's like the rock in my family.
Mm.
I just decided that maybe our company and um, a part of it, like my team, can be the one to help carry the weight. We don't always have to live life in a crisis mode. And what does that mean for their families, their passions, their visions? It's could it just be like, we sit together and listen, live through life with those little tiny gestures without having to say like I love you or like thank you. Maybe it's just like taking like 5 minutes to spend time with your daughter. And I've noticed like these things that have come back to all my friends now. Um, just like the 4 hours that they have in the morning that they can go drop off their kid to school or spend like an hour in the morning additionally in bed just waking up with the child. I mean, that's so much, that's so valuable. The bond that you form in the morning and in the evening when they come back from school, I've been experiencing it. So it's just top of mind for me. So
Yeah, I think it's true
yeah.
as a mother, it's true as a partner. I mean,
Yes.
what would happen if all couples spent, 10 minutes cuddling and just being with each other every morning,
Yeah.
starting their day? Like, what would that change? And
Yeah.
then what does that change in the world?
Yeah.
We think, especially.
Physical touch is so important.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. I think especially in Western culture, we like you said, because we didn't grow up with the sort of mindset of the village and all of us connected and supporting, we can end up feeling like we're just in this little micro world and it's all
Yeah.
about me and my family. But when you spend
No.
10, 15 minutes every morning cuddling with your sweetie or cuddling with your child, the impact of that, like you just said, physical touch is amazing on so many levels, so healing. And then that
So healing.
impacts everybody else you come into contact with that day because
Yeah.
you're in better form, you're feeling good, you're lit up, your dopamine is flowing a little more than it was or a lot more.
Yep.
And then you're impacting energetically. One of my long-term
Yeah.
participants used to talk about kindness ripples.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, he started working with me back in maybe 20, I don't even know, 2015, maybe 14, a long time ago. And then all of a sudden he was like, oh, there's ripples happening from the work we're doing together. And then he started
Yeah.
writing about kindness ripples. And it's like, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. There's another thing that we don't do in India, which was I forgot it. You don't really like have like I've never seen my parents ever kiss each other. I've never seen anybody in India do that. So like
Wow.
when I like started to do that with my husband in front of my family, it felt like so awkward. And I in fact like I was always restrained. I never like, showed any kind of affection to him in front of my family. And it's just it wasn't something that I grew up with. It felt so weird. So yeah, and now like it's taken me like a decade to for it to be like, you can hug your husband in front of your family. It's not a way of disrespecting. You can hug freely, you can hold hands, you can say I love you openly. And at first, it was a little bit uncomfortable,
Yeah.
like I wasn't, used to receiving that kind of like touch in front of people that I loved or cared about. So I realized as we did this, like over a decade or more, Robin, so this is a long time,
Wow.
that it's so healing. It's not just healing in romantic relationships, but also in friendships.
Yeah.
Like even hugging a friend was a new thing to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Wow, wow,
yeah,
wow. It's so interesting to think about a culture that has um, so much of the mindset of community and resource, and it takes a village, and everybody just connected and supporting and being with each other, which is so loving and so intimate,
yeah,
and but without the sort of non-sexual, just physical touch that humans so desire and crave. And
yeah,
wow, that's amazing. We're going to take a quick
yeah.
commercial break and we're going to come back just for the last segment of our episode today. Welcome back, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. It's been such a pleasure for me to have you, Debjani. I'm so honestly, genuinely thrilled to get to know you better and to all of and for all that you shared today about the cultural differences, because I feel like there's so much for us to learn from what you brought, actually. I don't know that there's things to learn in the other direction from the Western culture to the more Eastern cultures,
Oh,
but
there is.
say the Western culture has a lot to learn from Eastern cultures. And you said something to me during our commercial break that I would love for you to repeat. I think because the piece around the two cultures and being a child in both, um, I think that information, I let you say it in your own words, but I think it's transferable. And I'll say
Yeah.
how after. Yeah, go ahead.
Of course. So I was telling you about how I feel like I'm a child in both cultures, both in Western as well as in my own Indian culture. I left when I was 17. I was like, barely out of high school when I came here for university. And here, when I came for university, my entire focus was studying and like getting through grade. Like, you're just in a college, right? You have to like make sure. And my university was intense. So you have to make sure that you get the grades, and then after that, you are in a job. And my job in the corporate career wasn't necessarily like, it was also intense. It still is intense, and so you don't get a lot of chances to like really experience it. Well, I mean, I didn't get a lot of chances to experience it. So I feel like I'm a child in both cultures, like both when I go back to India today, because so many things have changed and people are holding hands, and I'm shocked. And how is that possible? And then here, I'm growing up with my child as I'm communicating with other parents or like other friends of ours, and I'm figuring out, oh, look, this is like, I mean, Friends is a TV show that, I mean, it has been around for like all of these like new things about TV shows and you know um I can't remember like the subtle things of the Western culture, but really like I feel like I'm learning from both
Yeah.
and kind of blending it in into my own experience because I kind of mix what I got from where I was born and where I am now. Um, Hugging freely, kissing hello, all of these things.
Yes.
Um,
I guess that
yeah.
is the way the Western culture might positively influence India, especially if you're going back and seeing people holding hands more, which makes me very happy, given that my life
Yeah,
is so much about the somatic, the body and touch and healing for pleasure and all of those things. But I love what you are bringing, which is the deep this deep connection that, maybe because you grew up that way and grew up in India, that there aren't any words for, when you're in it, it's hard to describe,
yeah,
you know. But just reminders that puja comes in many, many forms, and that it's
yeah,
about an honoring the divine, or honoring that which is greater than ourselves,
yeah,
honoring the mystery, honoring the courage, whatever your words might be, just honoring nature and all its incredible beauty.
yeah,
And that these practices, these self and spiritual practices are just, I don't know how it, like, living without them is
yeah,
is a life that's really missing this deep richness. And I think that's why I do what I do.
yeah,
Bring
yeah. I,
the connection and the richness back.
yeah. Puja is just about recreating that energy that you have inside of yourself already.
Right.
You know,
Exactly. Yeah.
just the love and calm, being collective. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you
Yeah.
so
Thank you
much
so
for
much,
being
Robyn.
here. You're so welcome. Thanks to our listeners for being here. A reminder that the show is every Thursday, 1 a.m. and 1 p.m. live on Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. I look forward to I wish I could see all my listeners, all 40,000 of them right now. Um, but I look forward to being with all of you again next week. And Debjani, just so much gratitude. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Robyn. It was great.
Mhm.